Beloved chosen one, tonight heaven pauses for you. The earth may still spin as usual, but in the unseen realm, time itself has slowed. The angels stand in reverent silence. The ink of eternity glimmers, and your name, yes, your very name is being whispered in the courts of heaven. This is not just another night. This is the night God begins writing the greatest chapter of your life. You've walked through so much to get here. Nights when sleep refused to come. Days when the weight of disappointment sat heavy on your chest. Times when you wondered if God had forgotten your name. But hear this truth, the silence was not abandonment, it was preparation. Heaven was not ignoring you. It was setting the stage for your unveiling. What you thought was the end of your story was only the pause before divine narration resumed. You are not ordinary. You were never meant to blend into the crowd. You've been misunderstood, even rejected, but that rejection was divine direction. The delays you despised were actually God's edits. He was rewriting the scenes you thought were ruined. The master author never discards his manuscript, he perfects it. We are reminded through the writings of David in the book of Psalms, chapter 46, verse 10. Be still and know that I am God. Tonight, that verse is not just scripture, it's a command to your spirit. Be still, not because nothing is happening, but because everything is happening. Heaven is moving in silence. God is aligning the lines of your destiny. The pen of divine purpose is hovering above your life, ready to inscribe a new beginning. You've cried enough tears over closed chapters. You've replayed the scenes of betrayal, loss, and confusion for too long. But hear the voice of the Lord tonight. Turn the page. The author is ready to continue, and the ink of his mercy is still wet. The same hands that formed galaxies are now rewriting your tomorrow. He's not erasing your pain, he's transforming it into prophecy. This night carries sacred weight. You may sense it in your chest, that holy stirring, that divine pressure. Heaven is pressing into your atmosphere. The angels assigned to your destiny are standing at attention. Everything that once resisted you will now recognize you. The warfare that surrounded you was confirmation of your anointing, not a contradiction of it. You are being reintroduced not as who you were, but as who you were meant to become. So be still. Chosen one. Still your racing thoughts. Quiet your fears. You are standing in the threshold of divine authorship. The story that once broke you will soon bless you. The same hands that wrote redemption's story at Calvary are now writing restoration across your life. What the enemy tried to erase, heaven is rewriting in gold. Let this truth rest deep within you. God doesn't need perfect ink to write perfect promises. He can use your stains, your scars, and your stumbles. The mess you're ashamed of will become the message that sets others free. The chapter that begins tonight won't just change your life, it will echo through generations. You're not just being written about, you're being written through. Even now, I can sense heaven's movement over you. The atmosphere is charged with divine expectancy. The Spirit is whispering, "This is the one I have chosen." Every line, every pause, every silence was leading here to this holy moment. God is picking up the pen again, and your name is the headline. So listen closely. Chosen one, don't let this moment slip by. God is waiting for your yes. He can only write what you surrender. When you say, "Lord, write through me," the next chapter begins in power. You will rise from the ashes of confusion with clarity. You will walk out of delay into divine timing. You will no longer chase blessings, they will recognize your address. The Spirit is saying, even now I am rewriting the ending. That's why the battle intensified lately. The enemy fights hardest when he senses the author turning the page. But no force in hell can cancel what heaven has decreed. What was closed will open. What was broken will bloom. What was delayed will accelerate. Beloved, this message is not random. This is divine timing. You were meant to hear these words tonight. The author of your life is not finished. He's only getting started. So as you feel this truth stirring within you, take action, let your faith respond. If this word speaks to your spirit, don't just receive it, respond to it. Like this message is an act of agreement. Share it so that another chosen one can awaken to their new chapter. Subscribe to stay connected to the flow of these divine words, because every message here carries a prophetic assignment meant for those marked by heaven. And finally, as a prophetic act of alignment, comment the number 111 below. Let it symbolize the first line of your new chapter, a sign that heaven, earth, and your spirit are now in unity. When you type it, do it with faith. Do it with expectancy. Let the comment section become a scroll of destiny declarations. The pen is in God's hand. The page is open, the ink of glory is ready, and tonight, chosen one, heaven begins to write again. You were never ordinary, chosen one. You were never meant to blend into the background or disappear among the crowd. From the moment heaven breathed life into you, you carried a frequency that the earth could not ignore. You have always walked differently, seen differently, felt more deeply than most, and that difference was never a flaw. It was a calling. Even as a child, you could sense it. There was something about you that didn't fit into the molds others tried to place you in. You saw the world through windows of wonder, while others only saw walls. And when people misunderstood you, when they mocked your depth or feared your light, you thought it was rejection. But it wasn't. It was redirection. Heaven was setting you apart for a purpose that required solitude. There have been seasons where your soul ached for belonging, where the silence felt endless, where it seemed like everyone else was moving forward while you were stuck. You questioned your worth, wondering why you didn't fit, why doors kept closing, why prayers seemed to go unanswered. But hear this. Beloved, being set apart is not the same as being forgotten. The distance was divine protection. The isolation was preparation. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah, chapter 1, verse 5. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. Let that truth echo within you. You were known before you were seen. You were chosen before you ever took your first breath. The world didn't call you, heaven did. Every gift, every sensitivity, every spark inside you was designed intentionally. You are not a mistake. You are a divine strategy wrapped in human form. Those who walked away were never meant to stay, because your destiny required pruning. God had to remove the wrong hands from your life so that the right ones could lift you higher. You may have lost people, opportunities, and seasons, but you never lost His plan. When you cried, He counted every tear. When you doubted, He whispered strength into your spirit. When you thought you were breaking, you were actually being built. You see, every rejection was a hidden redirection toward the right assignment. Every disappointment carved deeper capacity within you. The people who misunderstood you were not equipped to walk where you are going. You were never supposed to be understood by everyone. You were meant to be revealed by God at the appointed time. You are a hidden masterpiece, chosen one. Hidden, not because you're unworthy, but because gold must be refined before it's revealed. There is a weight of glory that cannot rest upon the unprepared. That is why the wilderness lasted longer than you expected. That is why God delayed certain blessings. He was stretching your capacity, shaping your character, and teaching your spirit how to recognize his voice. When you wondered if you were disqualified, heaven was actually qualifying you in silence. The loneliness you felt was God's classroom. He was teaching you how to stand when no one applauded, how to trust when no one understood, how to shine even when the world tried to dim your light. The nights of tears were not wasted, they watered the soil of your destiny. Do you remember those times when you almost gave up? When you thought your prayers were hitting the ceiling, that was when heaven was closest. God's presence doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers in the quiet ache of perseverance. He was nearer in your stillness than you realized. Chosen one. The reason your path has felt different is because you are not walking a common road. Ordinary journeys produce ordinary stories, but yours will not be ordinary. The very things that made you feel disqualified will become the proof of your divine appointment. You were never behind. You were being aligned. Every step you've taken, even the painful ones, has led to this moment of becoming. There is glory in your difference. There is power in your pain. There is destiny in your delay. Every experience, even the broken ones, has been gathered by God to create the mosaic of your purpose. The cracks in your story let the light of heaven shine through. The scars you carry are not signs of defeat, they are proof of survival, of strength, of sanctification. So now lift your head. Let go of the belief that you were too late, too flawed, too forgotten. Heaven never loses count of the chosen. You were marked before time began. You were hidden only until the moment heaven decided. Now, and that moment, beloved, is now. The divine pen continues its movement, and the author of your life smiles as he writes the next line. Your isolation ends not because the world recognizes you, but because heaven releases you. You are about to step into visibility not for fame, but for fulfillment. The world will finally see what heaven always knew, that you are chosen, not by merit, but by mercy. You are never ordinary. You are divine intention manifested in human form. And tonight, the heavens echo with the truth that you are known, seen, and sent. Chosen one. The breaking did not destroy you. It revealed you. Every moment you thought was ending you was actually shaping you. You've walked through seasons that tried to silence your song, nights that left your heart trembling, and storms that seemed endless. Yet here you are, still standing, still breathing, still believing. What the world calls broken, heaven calls becoming. There are scars on your soul that tell stories too deep for words. Every tear you've shed, every door that slammed shut, every betrayal that pierced your trust, none of it was wasted. God was there, collecting the fragments, writing beauty from the ashes. He never left you, even when the silence screamed otherwise. You were being refined, not rejected. The fire that burned around you was never meant to destroy you. It was designed to burn away what could not go with you. The breaking was not punishment, it was preparation. Heaven cannot pour new wine into old vessels. You had to be broken open for the oil of anointing to flow. That pain you thought would end you. It was heaven's method of expansion, as was spoken in the sacred texts of old, from the book of Psalms, chapter 34, verse 18. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. Let that truth wrap around you like a warm mantle. God draws closest when you feel furthest away. The times you whispered, "I can't do this anymore," were the very moments he whispered back, "Yes, you can. I am here." The breaking is proof that heaven has placed a high calling on your life. Vessels of ordinary purpose are never tested this deeply. Only those destined to carry divine weight are pressed this hard. You didn't lose everything. You're simply being stripped of what cannot sustain the next level. What you thought was subtraction is actually sacred subtraction. God removing what would have hindered your next glory. You may feel like a cracked jar, but remember, light only escapes through the cracks. Your pain has created pathways for His glory to shine. Every heartbreak rewrote a line of your purpose. Every disappointment deepened your wisdom. Every loss enlarged your compassion. You carry empathy now, not the shallow kind, but the kind born of endurance. You've learned how to pray when words fail, how to stand when strength fades, how to trust when sight disappears. You've learned to lean on God, not because you had no choice, but because He became your only choice. The becoming always hides within the breaking. The butterfly does not emerge without the crushing of the cocoon. Seeds do not sprout without the burial. You are not buried, you are planted. And tonight, heaven is watering every buried promise with divine remembrance. You may look at yourself and see fragments, but heaven sees formation. The cracks are aligning into purpose. The pressure you feel now is not the end, it's the final stage before emergence. The breaking was simply the doorway to becoming the masterpiece you were designed to be. Chosen one, I know the breaking hurt. I know it stretched your faith and tested your hope. But look closely, you survived what should have destroyed you. That is evidence that grace carried you. The same power that raised Christ from the dead is alive in you, and it refuses to let you stay down. Every time you stood up after being struck down, heaven took note. Every time you forgave when bitterness called, angels celebrated. Every time you worshiped through tears, your story gained power. And now, the season of breaking gives birth to becoming. You are stepping into strength you didn't know you had. The fire refined you, the wounds taught you, and now the oil flows. What once made you cry will soon make you testify. You are not a victim of pain. You are a vessel of purpose. Look at how far you've come, not because you were perfect, but because you were preserved. The evidence of divine preservation rests on you. God is about to use every scar as a sermon, every wound as a witness. The pain you endured will become the platform you stand upon to lift others. So now breathe. The breaking season is ending. The becoming season begins. You are no longer defined by what broke you, but by what you've become through it. Heaven has rewritten your identity. You are stronger, wiser, and far more radiant than before. If this word speaks to the deepest parts of you, I want you to declare it publicly as a prophetic act of ownership. Go to the comments and type "I rise again." Let those 3 words be your declaration. When you write them, you're not typing for me, you're typing for heaven to see. It's your way of saying, I refuse to live broken. I choose to become. Let the world know that you survived the crushing and that your becoming is underway. Because, chosen one, you are rising again, and this time you won't break. When heaven calls your name, everything shifts. The sound of it travels through realms unseen, shaking the dust from forgotten promises and awakening what once lay dormant inside you. God's voice carries the tone of eternity. And when He speaks your name, it is not merely a sound, it is a summons. It is the moment when destiny turns its head toward you and says, now. You may not hear it with your physical ears, but your spirit recognizes it instantly. It's the sudden stillness in the middle of chaos, the warmth that spreads through your chest when you were just about to give up, the unexplainable peace that whispers, you are seen. That is heaven calling. That is the sound of divine remembrance. There have been times you thought God had forgotten you. You prayed, but the heavens seemed silent, and you served, but the doors stayed closed. You waited, and it felt endless. Yet all along, your name was written in His palm. You were never lost in the crowd. Heaven does not misplace those it calls. The silence was not absence, it was anticipation. God was waiting for the perfect alignment of timing, maturity, and faith to release your next chapter. The voice of God thundered long ago in the book of Isaiah, chapter 43, verse 1. Fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name. You are mine. When heaven calls your name, it is not a question, it is ownership. You belong to the one who shaped galaxies, who commands the stars, who breathes life into dust. That same voice that called light out of darkness is now calling purpose out of you. You may have wandered, doubted, or stumbled, but his call remains unchanged. God does not revoke his invitation because of your imperfection. He redeems, restores, and repeats your name until you answer. There is something sacred about the moment God calls you personally. It is not just an instruction, it is an awakening. When he calls, your spirit remembers what your flesh forgot. Every insecurity, every fear, every excuse begins to melt under the weight of his voice. You realize you were never defined by the opinions of others or the mistakes of your past. You were defined by his calling, and that calling still stands. When heaven calls, everything familiar begins to feel uncomfortable. The places that once felt safe suddenly feel small. The conversations that once entertained you lose their flavor. The call of God disrupts comfort because comfort was never meant to contain your purpose. You start to feel the holy restlessness, the pull to leave behind what no longer aligns with who you are becoming. That's not confusion. That's confirmation. Heaven is tugging at your spirit, urging you to move. Think of Abraham, who left his homeland for a promise he couldn't see. Think of Moses, who trembled before a burning bush yet couldn't ignore the voice that said, "Go." Think of Mary, whose yes brought salvation into the world. Each of them heard their name called, and nothing was the same again. The moment God calls your name, your story begins to unfold differently. Chosen one. You are in that very moment now. Heaven has whispered your name across the winds of time. The call you feel in your spirit, that stirring that won't let you rest, is not random emotion, it's divine activation. God is summoning you into a new season of purpose. He is calling you to step out of fear and into faith, to leave behind old patterns and walk in prophetic confidence. Do not question whether you are qualified. Heaven did not call you because of your resume, it called you because of your readiness. You have been through the wilderness, the waiting, and the breaking, and now your spirit is mature enough to hear clearly. You have learned obedience in obscurity, and now God is releasing visibility with responsibility. When heaven calls your name, even your enemies will recognize the shift. The same people who doubted you will see the evidence of divine endorsement. Your atmosphere will begin to change. Opportunities will find you. Favor will follow you, and grace will guard you. This is the sound of divine promotion, the movement that comes not by striving but by calling. So pause for a moment and let that truth sink in. Heaven knows your name, not your title, not your mistakes, not your struggles, your name. The one he gave you before you were born, the one written in his book, the one spoken in his presence before time began. That name carries purpose. That name carries promise. And as heaven calls it again tonight, everything attached to delay must release. Every chain of doubt must break. Every closed door must bow to divine timing. You have been called fully, intentionally, and irrevocably. Chosen one. The heavens have spoken, and your name has echoed back with a yes. The call is not coming. It's already here. And now, your story begins to move with the rhythm of his voice. Your past is not your prison, chosen one. You have lived through seasons that felt like cages, regret closing in like cold iron, shame whispering that you would never change, guilt holding your heart hostage. But tonight, heaven declares freedom over you. The keys of grace are turning, and the door of mercy is swinging wide open. You do not have to rehearse your old chapters anymore. God has already rewritten the ending. Every mistake, every failure, every moment you wish you could erase, He has already woven it into redemption. What looked like ruins in your hands are becoming mosaics in His. The fragments of your past are being arranged into beauty. What once condemned you is now the very evidence of His mercy. You are not defined by what you did. You are defined by what He has done. The apostle reminds us in his letter to the Corinthians. Second book, chapter 5, verse 17. If anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has gone, the new has come. You see, God never wastes a wound. Every scar on your soul has purpose. The pain you thought would imprison you has become the soil from which your purpose grows. The same ground that saw your tears will soon witness your triumph. You are not the same person who once stumbled through shadows. You are being reborn in light. Imagine a garden after a storm. The soil is muddy, the flowers are bent low, and yet, beneath the surface, new roots are strengthening. That's you. Your past storms didn't drown you, they watered you. Heaven used the rain of regret to grow the roots of resilience. You are not buried, you are blossoming. And yet, so often we clutch our past like a chain, afraid to let go because it feels familiar. But God is asking you to release it, to open your hands and let the ashes fall. You cannot step into the new chapter while carrying the weight of old pages. The prison door has been open all along. You only need to walk through it. Your past was not a detour. It was the classroom where God taught you compassion. The things you once hid in shame will soon become the very testimony that sets others free. When you share what God has done, chains break in other lives. What the enemy meant for humiliation, heaven transforms into healing. Chosen one, you are not what you used to be, but you've been refined, not ruined. You've been corrected, not condemned. You've been forgiven, not forgotten. Your story, though marked by pain, now glows with promise. And there are people waiting in the dark, needing to hear your light. I know it's not always easy to believe that your past can be redeemed. Regret can feel heavy, like carrying stones in your spirit. But grace is the river that wears down even the hardest rock. Let it flow through you. Let it wash away what was never meant to stay. The waters of mercy do not ask for perfection, they ask for surrender. And when you finally surrender, when you let God be the author and not the editor, you'll realize your scars are not stains, they're signatures. Proof that you survived, that grace held you together when everything else fell apart. Beloved, if this message is finding its way into your heart right now, know that it isn't coincidence, it's calling. Heaven orchestrated this moment for you to breathe freely again, to remember that you are not the same person who once stumbled. You are lighter now. You are forgiven. You are free. If this word has touched your spirit and you feel that release stirring inside you, I invite you to be part of spreading this light. Like this message so it reaches others who are still locked behind their own walls of shame. Share it as an act of compassion, a small ripple that may free someone else's heart. And if this ministry has been a place where your spirit finds strength, consider helping it continue. Your support, even a small one, keeps the flame alive. It allows more voices like yours to find healing, more hearts like yours to be reached. Think of it not as a transaction, but as planting a seed, one that grows into more messages, more moments of divine encounter. When you donate, you're watering the soil that helped you bloom. Lastly, if you haven't yet. Subscribe. Stay close to the flow of what God is doing here. This is not just a channel, it's a sanctuary built from words, where the broken gather and rise again. Your past has served its purpose. It was the soil, not the sentence. The new chapter is waiting, and the author has already begun writing. Walk forward, unchained, unburdened, unafraid, for your tomorrow has already been redeemed. Chosen one, this is the hour of covenant. Heaven has marked this night as sacred, not because of the clock's turning, but because your surrender aligns with divine timing. You stand at a threshold where your obedience meets God's intention. The heavens lean close, the veil grows thin, and eternity begins to write your next steps. You have prayed for breakthrough. You have wept for direction. And now here it is. Not in thunder or spectacle, but in quiet revelation. God is not waiting for perfect words. He is waiting for a yielded heart. This moment is not random. It is midnight in the spirit, the turning of a chapter, the sealing of a promise. At midnight, the world is asleep, but heaven works in secret. Midnight is where endings and beginnings intertwine, where darkness whispers its last threat and dawn starts breathing through the horizon. The enemy fears midnight because it's the hour of divine reversal. And tonight, that reversal begins for you. It is written in the book of Acts, chapter 16, verse 25. At midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and the other prisoners were listening to them. Do you see the pattern? Midnight was their moment of breakthrough, not when the chains were gone, but while they were still there. Praise came before freedom. Worship came before release, and the sound of surrender became the key that unlocked the prison. That same anointing is hovering over you now. You may still see the chains, but heaven sees the door opening. You may feel surrounded, but in the spirit, angels are already standing with you. Your obedience tonight will echo through your atmosphere. It doesn't take a crowd, only a choice. Midnight isn't just a time, it's a test. It asks, will you still trust when you can't see the sunrise? It's in those dark, silent moments that your true faith is revealed. You've endured nights where prayers felt unanswered, where silence mocked your hope. But you held on. You kept praying. You kept believing. And now, heaven is responding. This covenant moment is about alignment. Heaven is saying, if you will surrender your plan, I will release mine. That's the divine exchange, your confusion for his clarity, or your fear for his favor, your burden for his blessing. You can't carry both. The altar of midnight is not a place of loss, it's a place of trade. Think of it, Paul and Silas did not wait for evidence to sing. They created it. Their praise became prophecy. Their song became a sword. And the same will happen to you when you lift your heart in faith tonight. God is not asking for perfection. He is asking for permission to move. Chosen one, you may not see it, but your midnight praise is shaking the foundation of what held you bound. The cells of fear are trembling. The gates of delay are weakening. And every spiritual lock around your purpose is beginning to loosen. This is the sacred exchange between heaven and earth, a covenant written not with ink, but with surrender. Do not underestimate what is happening right now. The same God who moved in that ancient prison is moving in the room where you sit. He's listening for the sound of your surrender, the whispered yes. Lord. The smallest agreement can move the mightiest mountain. This moment is not for spectators. It's for those ready to seal something eternal. Heaven writes in invisible ink, but the evidence will soon be visible to all. The very people who doubted your calling will witness your deliverance. The ones who left you in silence will hear your song of victory. Tonight, your story shifts from waiting to walking. The same power that raised Christ from the dead is writing movement into your stillness. Don't fight the process, flow with it. The covenant of midnight always favors those who choose trust over control. If your heart feels heavy right now, let it be a sign that heaven is close. When God draws near, everything inside you begins to awaken. That trembling you feel isn't fear, it's alignment. It's your spirit responding to the divine pull of destiny. Chosen one. Heaven doesn't ask for grand gestures tonight. It simply asks for one thing: agreement. Agree that your story is not finished. Agree that your tomorrow is held securely in His hands. Agree that this midnight is not your end, but your beginning. If this word finds you in the stillness of your room, if you sense that stirring deep within, I want you to act in faith. Go to the comments and type 8880. Do it not as superstition, but as a symbol. 8 is the number of new beginnings. And tonight, heaven triples it, body, soul, and spirit restored, renewed, realigned. Let 888 be your signature on the covenant. Heaven is offering. When you type it, whisper under your breath, I agree. That simple act will echo in the spirit, marking this night as the one when the new truly began. The midnight covenant is sealed not by ritual, but by revelation. You have crossed the threshold. The darkness has served its purpose. And now, light begins to rise. The warfare you have faced was never random. Chosen one. The chaos, the attacks, the strange resistance that seemed to come from nowhere, none of it was accidental. The closer you moved toward destiny, the more violently the opposition rose. That wasn't because you were weak, it was because your light was growing too strong for the shadows to ignore. Darkness always reacts to what threatens it. You have felt the pressure, the exhaustion of unseen battles. Nights when your spirit trembled, not knowing why you felt so heavy. Days when you woke up with a weight you couldn't explain. You weren't losing your mind. You were in a spiritual war. And though the battle felt endless, it was proof that heaven was preparing to release something powerful through you. The ancient words recorded in the book of Isaiah, chapter 54, verse 17, declare, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue which rises against you in judgment you shall condemn." Let those words rest like armor on your heart. The verse doesn't say the weapon won't form, it says it won't prosper. The presence of the weapon is not a sign of defeat, it's evidence of destiny. The attacks against you are the enemy's panic, a desperate attempt to stop what he can already see unfolding. You are too close to breakthrough for the battle to be mild. Think of how storms form before dawn. The sky trembles, thunder rolls, lightning strikes, and then, just as the chaos reaches its peak, light breaks over the horizon. That is where you are now. Your life has been rumbling, shifting, shaking because the dawn is near. The darkness always fights hardest right before it loses. You've endured betrayal not because you were cursed, but because your heart carried the kind of purity that exposes deceit. You faced loneliness not because you were unlovable, but because heaven needed you isolated long enough to strengthen your discernment. You fought fear not because you lacked faith, but because your calling terrified hell. The warfare has never been about who you were, it's about who you're becoming. You were being trained in the fire for the weight of glory that's coming next. The friction, the tension, the unseen tears, all of it was divine conditioning. You can't carry victory without first learning the rhythm of resistance. The enemy has studied you, chosen one. He's watched how you rise after every fall, how you whisper prayers even through exhaustion, how you still choose kindness after cruelty. And it enrages him, because every time you stand again, you prove that grace is stronger than guilt. You have become a threat to the kingdom of darkness simply by refusing to quit. Remember, this light doesn't fight darkness, it replaces it. The very presence of your faith pushes back what used to intimidate you. Every time you worship instead of worry, you shift atmospheres. Every time you forgive instead of retaliate, you disarm the enemy. Every time you declare peace where there was fear, you win ground in the unseen realm. There were nights when you felt surrounded, yet you were actually surrounded by angels. You didn't see them, but they were there, guarding your steps, shielding your mind, whispering strength into your spirit. You are not fighting alone. Heaven has armies assigned to your name. Every spiritual battle you've faced has taught you something sacred. You've learned to discern voices, to know which whisper comes from God and which comes from fear. You've learned that peace is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of divine confidence. You've learned that sometimes victory looks like endurance. The warfare before the wonder is always the same. Before resurrection came crucifixion. Before the Red Sea parted, Pharaoh pursued. Before the crown was placed on David's head, Saul threw spears. Warfare precedes wonder because pressure precedes power. You are not being destroyed, you are being defined. The pressure you feel is producing something eternal. The attacks have refined your faith. You no longer pray like a beginner. You pray like a warrior. You no longer worship out of habit, you worship out of hunger. The scars you carry now are not marks of defeat, they're medals of survival. There will come a day, sooner than you think, when you'll look back at this battle and realize it made you unshakable. The fire didn't consume you, it revealed what cannot burn. You've been purified, focused, awakened, and when the storm finally clears, when you'll emerge not as a victim, but as a vessel of victory. So take a breath. The warfare is not your whole story. It's the prelude to your wonder. The enemy only attacks what threatens him, and you have become a walking threat to everything that opposes the light. The proof that you are chosen is the battle that tried to stop you. But tonight, you stand taller. The sword of your spirit gleams brighter. Heaven recognizes your endurance. The war may have been long, but the victory is certain. You are emerging from this season armed with wisdom, clothed in resilience, and crowned with authority. The warfare was never about destroying you. It was heaven's way of announcing that something extraordinary was about to be born through you. The tables are turning, chosen one. Quietly, deliberately, heaven has been shifting the balance of things unseen. The story that once seemed fixed is being rewritten before your eyes. Every injustice that made you weep, every closed door that left you wondering why, each one is now being revisited by divine order. The same God who saw your tears in secret is now preparing to display your vindication in the open. The seasons of loss were never meant to last forever. The wilderness was not your home, only your classroom. You were being trained to see from heaven's perspective, to trust not in what you could control, but in what God could orchestrate. The waiting sharpened your discernment. The silence purified your motives. You had to be stripped of what was temporary so you could receive what was eternal. Heaven speaks clearly through the book of Genesis, chapter 50, verse 20. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. That verse is the anthem of divine reversal. It means that what was sent to break you will be forced to bless you. The enemy's plan is collapsing under its own weight because God has been using every attempt against you as material for your elevation. What once felt like a setback is now revealed as a setup. There is a mysterious beauty in the way God turns the tables. He doesn't simply erase pain, he transforms it into purpose. He doesn't ignore injustice, he turns it into instruction. Every wound becomes a well from which others will drink hope. Every valley you walked through becomes the evidence that He never left you there alone. Sometimes the turnaround begins so subtly that you almost miss it. One morning, you wake up, and the heaviness isn't as loud. The memories that used to sting begin to lose their sharpness. You smile, not because the pain was small, but because grace grew bigger. That's how heaven begins to reverse the narrative, not through explosions of miracle, but through quiet shifts of mercy. The tables are turning for you now. The same people who underestimated you will watch God elevate you, not to humiliate them, but to glorify Him. The very soil that tried to bury you is about to bloom with evidence of divine favor. Where there was lack, abundance will flow. Where there was ridicule, honor will rise. You may not see it yet, but things have already started to move in your favor. Heaven doesn't always announce its reversals with thunder. Sometimes it moves with the stealth of sunrise. 1 degree at a time, the light begins to change the landscape. The things that once worked against you are being rearranged to work for you. The stones thrown at you are becoming the foundation beneath your feet. There was a reason you had to endure without defending yourself. God was keeping your hands clean so that no one could say you manipulated the outcome. He has been your unseen advocate, working in boardrooms, hearts, and timelines you know nothing about. You do not need to chase justice, it is already chasing you. And when the turning becomes visible, it will happen swiftly. Divine reversals rarely come slowly. The same way a tide pulls back only to surge forward with greater strength, so too will your blessings return multiplied. The delays you faced were not denials, they were the gathering of momentum. Heaven has been collecting every not yet and converting them into an unstoppable now. Chosen one, your life is about to demonstrate that God never wastes suffering. The rejection that once crushed you will soon prove to be redirection. The betrayal that wounded you will become the evidence that your destiny was too sacred to share with everyone. Even the loss you mourned will birth a new level of empathy that becomes ministry. You will soon see how the smallest details were never random: the timing, the tears, the people who left. Each one had a purpose. God doesn't just restore what was lost. He multiplies it. He never returns what was taken in the same form. He upgrades it, He enhances it, He transforms it until you no longer wish for what once was, because what is now is so much greater. The tables are not turning to punish anyone, they are turning to fulfill prophecy. You were never designed to stay beneath what tried to crush you. Heaven is flipping the narrative so that grace stands taller than grief. Every ending is being rewritten into redemption. Every failure is being translated into fuel. So stand still and watch. The hands of divine justice are moving, even if you cannot see them. The sound of shifting is already in the air. You are entering the season where everything that was once out of place begins to align. The tables are turning, chosen one, not someday, but now. Heaven's pen moves through you. Chosen one, every word you speak in faith, every act of obedience, every prayer whispered in secret, it all becomes ink in the hands of the author. You were not created merely to be written about. You were created to be written through. God does not just record your life, He co-authors it with you. Your choices become lines in the divine manuscript, and your surrender becomes the ink that never fades. When you look back, you'll realize that nothing in your story has been wasted. The detours, the delays, the heartbreaks, they were all part of the sentence structure of grace. Heaven has been editing your story not to erase your humanity, but to emphasize His glory. The very pages that once felt torn are now being restored, their edges gilded by mercy. As the psalmist wrote in the book of Psalms, chapter 45, verse 1, "My tongue is the pen of a ready writer. Think about that. Your tongue, your words, your confessions carry the power to write reality. When you speak in faith, you are not merely describing what you see, you are declaring what heaven is ready to release. You have been given authority to co-write with God, to decree, to bless, to speak light into dark places. Every word of truth you speak becomes ink in the spiritual realm. For too long, you may have let fear or shame narrate your story. You allowed others' opinions to hold the pen, letting their words define you. But tonight, heaven is handing the pen back to you. God is saying, write with me. Write forgiveness where bitterness once ruled. Write hope where despair had the last line. Write peace in the margins where anxiety tried to scribble chaos. Your story is not static, it's living, breathing, and growing. Even now, as you breathe, the pen of heaven continues to move. Every heartbeat is another word, every sunrise another paragraph. God writes not in ink made of darkness, but in light made of redemption. Heaven's writing is not rushed, it's deliberate. The pauses you've endured were not neglect, they were punctuation, the commas of delay, the periods of rest, the semicolons of transition, all of them were perfectly placed by the author who knows exactly how to pace your story. What looked like silence was simply a pause between chapters. You are now in the section of your life where heaven writes acceleration. What once took years will take moments. The rhythm of divine creativity is increasing, and your spirit can feel it. That flutter inside your chest, that whisper of purpose returning, it's the sound of heaven writing again. Chosen one, there's something extraordinary about the way God writes through broken vessels. He doesn't choose polished paper, he chooses torn pages. Because when the ink of glory flows across scars, it glows brighter. You have been chosen as a living letter of his faithfulness, one that others will read and find hope in. Even your silence has meaning. There were moments when you had no words left, when all you could do was breathe through the ache, and even then, heaven wrote through your tears. Every sigh was recorded. Every groan of the Spirit was translated into divine dialogue. You were speaking in a language only heaven could understand. Your story carries weight. It carries testimony. Somewhere, someone needs to read the line you are living right now. Your endurance is a message. Your faith under fire is a sermon written in motion. You don't need a stage to preach, your perseverance is already preaching louder than your voice ever could. Heaven's pen doesn't make mistakes. Even the lines that looked wrong are being rewritten in mercy. You are not a rough draft. You are a masterpiece still in progress. The author never abandons his work midway. He finishes what he begins, and he delights in the process. If you could see the heavenly library, you'd find shelves filled with stories of redemption, and yours is among them. The ink is still wet, glowing with promise. Angels look upon it with awe, because it's not just a story of survival, it's a prophecy of transformation. So pause and let this truth wash over you. Heaven is writing again. The pages are turning, the sentences are forming, and your obedience is the ink. Every act of faith, no matter how small, becomes a sentence of power. And now, as a prophetic act of agreement, I want you to go to the comments and type "I'm his story." Say it not just as words, but as revelation. When you type "I'm his story," you're declaring that your life belongs to the author who makes no errors. You're acknowledging that even your broken chapters belong to him, that your journey is still unfolding under his careful hand. It's a way of saying, "Lord, keep writing through me. The pen hasn't stopped, heaven hasn't finished, and your next paragraph will be pure glory." The crown awaits the courageous. Chosen one. Heaven has been watching, not from a distance, but from within your very breath. waiting for the moment you'd finally believe that you were born for more than survival. The trials you faced were not designed to crush you, they were meant to reveal the royal within you. Every scar has been shaping the crown that now glimmers in the spirit, ready to rest upon your head. You see, courage has never been the absence of fear. It's the decision to move forward even when fear's voice trembles in your ear. Every step you took when you didn't feel strong enough was a coronation in disguise. The tears that fell in private were not wasted. They were the oil of anointing preparing you for public victory. The divine words written in the book of Joshua, chapter 1, verse 9, remind us, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." That verse is not a suggestion, it's a decree. Heaven commands courage because destiny requires it. You cannot carry a crown with trembling hands. You must steady them with faith. Every great calling is guarded by fear. But the brave are those who step through the fear to claim what was promised. Think of the butterfly breaking free from its cocoon. It must fight against resistance to strengthen its wings. The struggle isn't punishment, it's preparation for flight. The same is true for you. Your courage was forged in confinement, in the dark chambers of waiting and wondering if anything would ever change. But those tight spaces trained your spirit to breathe in faith when everything around you seemed suffocating. Courage doesn't roar. Sometimes it whispers. It's the quiet voice that says, "Try again." It's waking up after another disappointment and still believing that God has something greater ahead. It's praying the same prayer that hasn't been answered yet, and doing it with renewed trust. And it's not about being fearless, it's about being faithful. Your crown has been forming in secret. It was hammered out in the fires of adversity, polished by perseverance and shaped by surrender. It fits perfectly because it was crafted from your own victories and tears. The metal of your endurance, the jewels of your faith, the gold of your obedience, all these have come together in the hands of heaven's jeweler. And now, heaven leans close with a question: will you step forward to wear it? Many are called, but few are courageous enough to carry the weight of glory that comes with the call. The crown is not for decoration, it's for dominion. It signifies responsibility, authority, and alignment with heaven's will. To wear it is to lead with love, to walk with wisdom, to shine with humility. But even as heaven places the crown upon your life, remember, crowns are not just worn, they are carried. They demand the strength of surrender, the grace of service, and the courage to keep standing when the winds blow hardest. The crown is not a trophy, it's a trust, chosen one. If this message is touching your heart, it's because heaven is calling you to rise into royalty. The fear you've been fighting was never a sign of weakness, it was a sign that something holy was approaching. Courage is not loud, it's consistent. It's choosing faith when logic demands evidence. It's walking through the fog because you trust the voice that leads you. If these words find you tonight and something in your spirit whispers yes, then let that be your sign. Like this message as a symbolic act of lifting your head again. Share it so that another weary soul may remember that they too were born for crowns, not chains. Every share is a seed. You never know which heart your courage might awaken. If this sanctuary of words has been your place of strength, I invite you, sincerely, to consider giving back. Your donation, no matter how small, keeps this light burning for others walking through their dark nights. Think of it as oil in a lamp. Every drop keeps the flame of hope alive. When you give, you're not just supporting words, you're funding transformation, faith, and freedom. And if you haven't already, subscribe. Not as an act of following, but as an act of belonging, to stay connected to messages that feed your spirit, to join a movement of chosen ones rising together. You've carried the weight of battle long enough. Now, it's time to carry glory. Heaven is not waiting for perfection, it's waiting for permission. Lift your head. Chosen one, the King of Kings stands before you with a crown in his hands, saying, "You have fought well, you have endured much, and now rise." The crown awaits the courageous, and tonight, heaven sees courage in you. The chapter called Restoration is now unfolding. Chosen one, you have walked through the ashes long enough. The time has come for beauty to rise. The winds that once scattered your dreams are now carrying them back to you, rearranged and refined. What was broken is not lost, it is being rebuilt with divine precision. You are entering the sacred season where God restores not just what was taken, but what was meant to be. Restoration is not a simple return to what once was. It is a transformation of everything touched by loss. Heaven never restores to the original form, it multiplies, enhances, and glorifies what it returns. The things that once slipped through your fingers are coming back renewed, no longer fragile but fortified by grace. As the prophet Joel declared in the book of Joel, chapter 2, verse 25, "I will restore to you the years that the locust has eaten." Those words still thunder across the centuries, landing now in the quiet chambers of your heart. God is not only restoring things, He is restoring time. The wasted years, the missed opportunities, the seasons that felt stolen, He is redeeming them. What you thought was gone forever is being reimagined by heaven's creativity. The God who commands eternity can bend it on your behalf. You may look at your life and see gaps, places where relationships fell apart, where dreams dissolved, where joys seemed to vanish. But heaven sees not gaps, only gardens. Beneath what looks barren, roots of restoration have already begun to grow. You are about to see shoots of promise breaking through soil that once seemed cursed. Restoration begins quietly. It often comes disguised as peace after chaos, as laughter after silence, as opportunity rising from rejection. It starts in the unseen before it appears in the visible. Heaven always begins construction in the heart before it rebuilds the external. And that is why you've been feeling the soft stirrings inside the readiness, the small spark of hope you can't explain. That's the sign that the season of restoration has already begun. God is not only giving back what was lost, He's healing the version of you that lost it. Restoration isn't about returning to your old self, it's about becoming who you were meant to be all along. The pain shaped you. Yes. But the healing will define you. You will walk lighter, love deeper, and see clearer. The weight that once chained your shoulders is being replaced with the mantle of purpose. There are relationships that ended not because of failure, but because God wanted to preserve your heart for a purer connection. There are dreams that seem to crumble, but they are being rebuilt with foundations that cannot be shaken. What once hurt you will now help you. The very thing that caused your breakdown will soon become the birthplace of your breakthrough. You will find that restoration is never rushed. God restores like an artist, not like a mechanic. He doesn't just repair what's cracked, He fills the cracks with gold. Every wound you carry becomes a reflection of His craftsmanship. Your story, once marked by pain, will now shine with testimony. This is the season where even your regrets will serve redemption. The decisions you wish you hadn't made are being rewritten into wisdom. The paths you thought were wrong turns are being woven into the right direction. The delays that frustrated you were divine detours, keeping you from destinations that would have destroyed you. Heaven's hand was on you the entire time. And now, everything begins to return not to where it was, but to where it belongs. The opportunities, the peace, the relationships, the confidence, they are coming back multiplied. You are about to experience the joy of recognition. When you realize that nothing truly left you, it was simply waiting for you to be ready. Restoration doesn't just bless, it vindicates. Those who watched you fall will witness your rise, not in arrogance but in awe. You will not need to speak for yourself. The evidence will speak for you. The favor on your life will announce what your voice no longer needs to explain. Look around you, chosen one. The fragments are rearranging themselves. The melody that once went silent is finding its rhythm again. The story that felt incomplete is being rewritten with glory. The door that closed was not locked, it was being reinforced to open wider than before. You will soon find yourself walking through spaces that once rejected you, this time with authority. The same ground that saw your tears will echo with your laughter. What you thought was the end was merely the pause before restoration's beginning. Take a deep breath. Feel the stillness. The battle you fought has cleared the way for what's being built now. Heaven has finished the preparation. Now comes the presentation. You are not returning to where you were. You are advancing to where you were always meant to be. The locust took much, but grace restores more. The years may have seemed wasted, but God wastes nothing. Your restoration is not coming. It's already here, unfolding line by line, day by day, miracle by miracle. Chosen one, your chapter of restoration has officially begun. The fire that forges gold has been upon you. Chosen one. The trials, the heat, the pressure, they were never meant to destroy you. They were meant to refine you. Every flame that touched your life was sent not as punishment, but as purification. You are emerging now, not as the same person who entered the fire, but as something radiant, strengthened, and rare. The process was painful, yes. Fire always is. You may have screamed, wept, or wondered why God seemed silent while the flames burned so fiercely. But heaven was not absent, it was overseeing the refining. The divine hands never left the furnace. The fire only burns away what cannot stay. It never consumes what is destined to remain. It is written in the book of Malachi, chapter 3, verse 3. He will sit as a refiner and purifier of silver. He will purify the Levites and refine them like gold and silver. Notice how it says he sits. The refiner does not stand afar. He sits close, watching carefully, ensuring the heat never exceeds what the metal can handle. He knows exactly how long you must stay in the flames to become flawless. The moments that felt unbearable were never abandonment. They were attention. Heaven was focused on you the entire time. In ancient days, silversmiths would gaze into the metal as it melted, waiting until they could see their reflection clearly. That was how they knew the silver was ready. The same is true for you. God has been looking into your life, waiting for his reflection to shine from within. When you began to forgive instead of hate, to worship instead of worry, to love when it was hardest, that's when heaven saw its own image glowing back. Chosen one, you have survived fires that others would not have endured. You have walked through betrayal, loss, and uncertainty, and yet, here you stand, softer in heart, but stronger in spirit. The flames did not destroy you, they revealed what cannot be burned. You are pure faith now, faith that doesn't depend on comfort. Faith that breathes in the dark. The refining process is never pleasant, but it is always purposeful. Fire separates imitation from authenticity. It shows what's real. That's why this season exposed so much people, intentions, desires. It wasn't cruelty, it was clarity. Heaven was ensuring that nothing false would travel with you into your next level. You may have lost much in the fire, but what remains is holy. Every friendship that faded, every door that closed, every plan that collapsed, it was all part of purification. Gold cannot fear the fire, for the fire reveals its worth. You are that gold, chosen and purified for a higher calling. The glow that surrounds you now is not from worldly success. It's the shine of someone who has seen the furnace and lived to testify. There is a quiet authority in those who've been refined. They no longer chase validation because they know who sustains them. They no longer fear the flames because they've learned that even fire obeys God. The world will soon notice something different about you. They won't be able to define it, but they'll feel it. It's the residue of refinement, the scent of sanctification. You've become a vessel of durability and beauty, strong enough to carry weight, gentle enough to pour grace. Chosen one, the season of burning is ending. The flames that once terrified you are now behind you, and from the ashes, you rise like gold, untarnished, unshaken, undeniable. The reflection of heaven gleams from your life, and every step you take now will shimmer with purpose. But before this section closes, pause for a moment. Reflect on what you've endured. Remember the nights when you thought you'd never make it, the moments when your hope flickered faintly, and yet, here you are. That's not luck. That's legacy. You've been refined into a vessel of divine endurance. And now, heaven invites you to respond, to mark this moment, to acknowledge that you've come through the fire not burned, but blessed. Go to the comments and type 4444. Do it as a prophetic sign. 4 is the number of foundation, of stability, of divine order. When you write 4444, you're declaring, my foundation is firm, my faith is established, my fire has forged me. It's not superstition, it's symbolism. You're placing a spiritual stone, saying, here, I stood in the fire and came out as gold. Let it be your public declaration of divine endurance. For when heaven looks at you now, it no longer sees the ashes, it sees the glow. The refiner's work is complete. You are radiant, you are ready, you are gold. The angel with the ink of glory stands beside you now. Chosen one. The atmosphere around you has shifted, the air feels alive. The unseen realm alert. Heaven is writing again, not just in the story of your life, but through the very angels assigned to your destiny. For every chosen soul, there are scribes of light who record, remind, and release divine decrees into motion. And tonight, one such messenger hovers close, holding a scroll shimmering with promise. You may not see the angel with your eyes, but your spirit feels the nearness. That sudden calm, that warmth rising through your chest, that stillness in your mind that is the signature of heaven's presence. Angels move like whispers, silent to the ear but thunderous in effect. When they come, they do not come empty-handed. They carry divine ink and instruction. It was written long ago in the book of Psalms, chapter 91, verse 11. For he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. Those words are not a poetic metaphor, they are reality. You have been surrounded by divine guardians through every valley, every sleepless night, every battle unseen. When despair tried to crush you, they stood as barriers. When fear tried to take root, they whispered courage into your dreams. You were never walking alone. Heaven was always nearer than the breath in your lungs. There are angels that record your faithfulness, not for judgment, but for reward. Every time you chose to love instead of hate, every time you forgave when bitterness called louder, every time you sowed kindness into barren ground, those moments were written. Heaven's scribes mark obedience, humility, and perseverance with golden ink that never fades. The records of your endurance shine brighter than you know. And then there are angels of fulfillment, the messengers who carry answers. They descend not with trumpets but with timing. They come when obedience and promise finally intersect. Perhaps that is what is happening now. The angel with the ink of glory stands at the intersection of your surrender and heaven's script, ready to seal what God has decreed. The scroll in his hands bears your name. It holds not only your prayers but heaven's replies. On it are written promises long delayed but never denied, breakthroughs ripened by patience, blessings matured by waiting. The angel's task is not merely to record but to release. Every stroke of his pen transmits power into the atmosphere around you. There is something sacred about this image, the ink of glory gliding across parchment woven of light. Each word written becomes a thread in the tapestry of your future. You felt the movement of this ink before without realizing it. Those sudden coincidences that aligned perfectly, those impossible moments when help arrived just in time, those whispers that said, "Go left, not right." That was heaven's ink writing invisibly through your days. Angels do not only guard, they guide. They tilt your heart gently toward divine direction. They speak in intuition, in peace, in the still voice that interrupts confusion. How many times have you felt to wait when rushing seemed easier? How many times were you protected from paths that would have led to harm? Those were the brushstrokes of angelic mercy. Chosen one. The ink of glory is not ordinary. It glows only where faith has walked. The more you trust, the clearer heaven can write. Doubt blurs the lines, but worship rewrites them. When you lift your voice in gratitude, even in small things, the angel's pen moves faster, inscribing joy and favor into the coming pages of your life. You have reached the moment where heaven is finalizing a chapter. The angel's ink does not merely describe what has happened, it seals what is yet to come. The things that once felt uncertain are now being authorized. Promises that hovered like clouds are being anchored into reality. Heaven is not just speaking, it is signing. There is power in being written about by heaven. Earthly recognition fades, but heavenly documentation endures. You may never know the full extent of your influence until eternity reveals it. Every act of faith has rippled into unseen realms, setting in motion blessings that will outlive you. This is why heaven records not to keep score, but to keep legacy. The ink of glory is eternal. It inscribes testimonies that generations will draw strength from. Somewhere in eternity's library, your faith is becoming a reference point for those who will come after you. So when you feel the wind shift, when your spirit trembles without reason, when peace floods you unexpectedly, remember, the angel with the ink of glory is near. He is still writing. Your obedience gives him words. Your faith gives him permission. Your endurance gives him reason. And when his pen lifts from the scroll, heaven will smile, for another chapter of divine faithfulness will have been completed. There is a holy quiet before every great unveiling. Chosen one. The silence before the symphony. The stillness before the first note of glory reverberates through the earth. You are standing in that sacred hush now, a pause pregnant with promise, a calm that conceals coming movement. Heaven's orchestra is tuning in the unseen, preparing to play the song written for your next season. Do not despise this silence. It is not emptiness, it is expectation. God often works his greatest wonders in the quiet, when everything external grows still and the only voice left to hear is his. The world calls it delay, but heaven calls it design. The silence is where strength gathers, faith matures, and peace deepens roots that cannot be uprooted. It is written in the book of Exodus, chapter 14, verse 14. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. That single line holds more power than 1,000 explanations. Be still. It does not mean to be idle. It means to be anchored. It is the stillness of trust, not the paralysis of fear. It is standing with confidence in the middle of confusion, knowing that heaven is handling what your hands cannot. The stillness before the symphony is never wasted. It's the proof that God is composing something too beautiful to be rushed. You have walked through noise, chaos, heartbreak, endless motion. Every season before this one was filled with the clang of warfare and the hum of waiting. But now, heaven has called a holy pause. The silence you feel isn't absence, it's alignment. When an orchestra prepares for a masterpiece, there's always a hush, a moment where every musician raises their bow or their breath in anticipation. That's where you are now, the edge of eruption. The hush is holy because it separates what was from what will be. Heaven cannot begin the next melody until the echoes of the old one fade. The silence allows you to shed the sound of yesterday's grief so you can recognize the rhythm of tomorrow's grace. You are being tuned to heaven's frequency, refined to resonate with its harmonies. In this stillness, listen. You will notice the subtle sounds of destiny awakening, the faint rustle of angelic movement, the heartbeat of God pulsing through creation, the whisper of your own spirit saying, "Something is coming." That's the prelude. The symphony has not yet begun, but the atmosphere is charged with readiness. Silence is never a void, it's a womb. It births revelation. When you can no longer hear the noise of the world, you begin to discern the voice of eternity. Many fear silence because it confronts them with themselves, but for the chosen, silence becomes sanctuary. It's in the stillness that you see what truly matters. That your heart softens enough to be molded. That heaven finishes writing what began in your tears. This quiet moment is also divine mercy. If God gave you the fullness of what you asked for before you were ready, it would crush you. So he silences the room, slows the rhythm, lets the air settle until your spirit can bear the weight of the coming melody. The stillness is proof of his care, not his distance. Consider the dawn. Before the first light pierces the horizon, there's a depth of darkness so complete it almost hums. Then, without warning, light breaks. That's how heaven moves suddenly after silence. You are standing in that pre-dawn moment on the verge of illumination. Don't rush it. Let the quiet complete its work. There are lessons that only silence can teach. How to recognize subtle divine movement. How to distinguish between peace and apathy. How to stay grounded when there's nothing left to control. The world values speed, but heaven values stillness because stillness proves surrender. The silence before the symphony is God's way of saying, "Let me play now." He has heard your song of sorrow, your notes of endurance, your chords of faith through pain. Now, he will weave them into harmony. Every off-key moment will find its place. Every broken rhythm will blend into beauty. When the music begins again, it will sound like joy wrapped in wisdom, like victory wrapped in peace. Chosen one, your current quiet is not the end of sound, it's the tuning before crescendo. The strings of destiny are being tightened, not to hurt you, but to produce a clearer tone. Heaven's hand moves carefully over your life, adjusting, refining, aligning, until the pitch of your purpose matches the melody of eternity. When the silence breaks, it won't be chaos, it will be composition. The notes will fall into place like rain, washing over the dry ground of waiting. You will recognize the rhythm instantly because it will sound like home, the sound of your spirit singing in harmony with heaven. So rest in this pause. Do not fight the stillness or try to fill it. The composer is working. The conductor is raising his hand. The instruments of destiny are poised, and the first note of your new symphony hovers in the air. The silence will not last forever. But while it lingers, let it teach you that peace is louder than panic and that stillness is not weakness, it is trust in its highest form. For when heaven begins to play again, your life will become the music creation was waiting to hear. The rise of the redeemed begins quietly. Chosen one, it does not come with trumpet blasts or roaring applause. It begins when the one who has been broken, bruised, and overlooked finally stands again, not in pride, but in power. You are that one. You are the testimony that grace is not an idea, but a force that resurrects what was declared finished. For too long, you have carried the ashes of your own story, wondering if beauty could ever grow from them. But tonight, heaven whispers, stand up. The weight of what once held you down has already lost its authority. You are not the same person who once walked through those shadows. You have been refined by fire, washed by tears, and crowned by endurance. We are reminded through the book of Psalms, chapter 107, verse 2. Let the redeemed of the Lord tell their story, those he redeemed from the hand of the enemy. That verse is your anthem now. You are not defined by your scars, you are distinguished by them. They are not symbols of defeat, they are marks of survival, evidence that you wrestled with the dark and emerged carrying light. Every healed wound is a doorway through which someone else will find freedom. The rise of the redeemed looks different from worldly victory. It isn't boastful or loud, it's steady, graceful, radiant. It's a sunrise after a long night, a garden blooming from cracked ground, a melody rising from silence. Redemption doesn't erase your history, it transforms it into harmony. The same notes that once sounded painful now blend into a song of purpose. You are walking proof that God still rebuilds ruins. Your resilience is not just strength, it's prophecy. Every step you take forward declares that restoration is real. And this time, your rise will not be rushed. It will unfold with divine timing, measured, magnificent, undeniable. You once carried shame like heavy armor, protecting yourself from more hurt. But now, that armor falls away. You no longer need to hide your healing. The redeemed walk with open hearts, not fragile ones. They shine because they've learned that vulnerability is not weakness, it's worship. Heaven is releasing new strength into your bones. You will begin to notice it, energy returning where exhaustion lived, creativity awakening where confusion lingered. It's not adrenaline, it's anointing. You are stepping into a season of sacred recovery, where what was taken will be returned, and what was broken will become your platform. The rise of the redeemed also carries responsibility. You were lifted not just to stand, but to lift others. When you tell your story, you are not boasting, you are breaking chains. Someone else's deliverance will begin when they hear what you survived. So speak, write, sing, serve. Let the overflow of your restoration become healing water for others still wandering through drought. Beloved, if this message reaches you and your spirit feels it stirring, then know this: your rise is not coming. It has already begun. The earth can feel it, the heavens can see it, and those who once doubted will soon recognize it. If these words resonate with the rhythm of your soul, I invite you to do something simple but sacred. Like this message not as an algorithmic gesture, but as a sign that you're standing in agreement with heaven's declaration over your life. Every like becomes a light, a small torch in the night declaring, "The redeemed rise." Share this message with someone who has forgotten their worth. Let your compassion become a bridge between despair and destiny. You never know, your simple act could reignite someone's hope. And if this space, these words, have watered your weary spirit, consider pouring back into it. Your donation isn't just support, it's seed. It allows this sanctuary of light to keep burning, to reach the hidden heart still searching for a whisper of grace. Think of it as oil for the lamp. Each drop keeps the flame alive so that others may find their way home. And of course, subscribe not out of routine, but out of connection. Stay close to the flow of these divine conversations. Each message is a thread, and together they form a tapestry of faith and awakening. You are part of this movement of light. Before this section closes, take a quiet moment. Reflect on the distance between who you were and who you are now. Can you feel the shift that's redemption taking root? The chains that once clattered at your feet are now trophies of triumph. The tears that once watered the ground of despair are now pearls in your crown. Go to the comments and let your voice be heard. Write from your heart your gratitude, your realization, even your small beginnings. Each comment becomes a written echo of your rise, a collective chorus of the redeemed declaring, "We are still here, and we will not fall again." Because, chosen one, this is your season of elevation. The redeemed rise not by accident, but by divine appointment. You are standing taller now, not because life has been easy, but because grace has been enough. The horizon glows with the gold of a new day, and heaven smiles at the sight of you crowned courageous and completely redeemed. The night heaven calls you author is unlike any other. Chosen one. It is the moment when the pen once held solely in divine hands is gently placed into yours, not as a symbol of control, but of co-creation. For all your life, God has been writing for you. Now He writes with you. The ink that flows is no longer only from heaven, it runs through your obedience, your choices, your willingness to say yes even when understanding is small. Heaven does not give the pen lightly. It entrusts it to those who have been tested, those who know what it means to surrender, those who have learned that the greatest stories are not written in comfort, but in courage. You have become such a one. The fires you faced burned away fear. The storms you survived purified your discernment. And now, in the quiet of your spirit, God whispers, "Write with me." It is written in the book of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 2. Write the vision, make it plain on tablets, so that he may run who reads it. That command was not only for the prophet, it was for you. Your life is a vision that must be made plain, not hidden in silence or fear. Every lesson, every redemption, every encounter has been training your hand to write truth. You are not just the subject of God's story, you are a steward of it. What He has placed inside you is not meant to remain unspoken. It is meant to be shared, shaped, and seen. Think of how every author begins with a blank page. At first, the emptiness feels intimidating, a white expanse that seems to echo your uncertainties. But then, the first word comes, and that single word becomes a key that unlocks courage. God has already written the outline. He is waiting for you to fill in the details with faith. Your daily obedience is the ink that completes the manuscript of your destiny. When heaven calls you author, it is not asking you to write perfectly, it is asking you to write faithfully. To create, to build, to speak life. Maybe your pages are songs, maybe they are businesses. Maybe they are acts of compassion or words of wisdom whispered to someone in pain. Whatever your writing looks like, heaven recognizes it as co-authorship. You and God are crafting a living letter read by everyone you meet. For years, you may have believed that your story was too messy to share. You saw smudges where heaven saw fingerprints. But every imperfection is part of your authenticity. The most powerful testimonies are written in the handwriting of those who have trembled, erred, and yet continued. The world does not need polished pages, it needs honest ones. Heaven calls you author because you have something to say that only your experience can express. Your pain has taught you vocabulary that peace alone never could. Your survival has given you a voice sharp enough to cut through despair and soft enough to soothe the weary. You have become the kind of story that carries the weight of healing for others. And when you begin to write, whether through words, action, or art, you will feel heaven moving with you. Inspiration will no longer come as random thoughts, but as sacred whispers. Ideas will arrive not as coincidences, but as confirmations. You will sense that divine companionship in the rhythm of your work, in the timing of opportunities, in the way things finally align after long seasons of delay. To be called author by heaven is to be trusted with influence. It means you carry the power to shift atmospheres with what you release. A single sentence born of obedience can change generations. A single act of faith can rewrite bloodlines. When God writes through you, your life becomes a letter sealed with eternal significance. This partnership is not without weight. Authors must be disciplined. They must continue even when inspiration fades. There will be days when you stare at blank pages again, wondering if heaven has gone quiet. But remember, the author never leaves the co-author. He is there, even in the pauses, even in the edits. The silence between paragraphs is not distance, it's design. He's shaping the next scene. Your pen may tremble, but the ink will not fail. Heaven supplies the flow. You are not writing alone. The more you surrender, the stronger the sentences of your life become. And as you keep going, you'll notice the lines begin to form a pattern, a testimony that others can follow. One day, you will look back on what has been written and realize that even your tears formed sentences heaven used. Every trial, every triumph, every turning point, they were all chapters in a divine collaboration. The author of all creation chose you as a storyteller of grace. So write, chosen one. Write with courage, write with honesty. Write knowing that every stroke of your life's pen is shaping eternity's narrative. The night heaven calls you author is not the end of the story, it is the moment when you finally realize that the story has always belonged to both of you. The greatest chapter begins tonight. Chosen one. All that was hidden now rises into light. All that was broken now breathes with purpose. The author and you stand together at the edge of the page, ink still glistening, ready to begin again. You have walked through the valley, endured the refining fire, and now stand beneath the open heavens where everything is made new. The story that once seemed uncertain now unfolds with divine rhythm. You can almost feel the shift, the subtle trembling in the atmosphere, the gentle hum of creation aligning. Heaven has turned the page. The former things no longer define you. The future stretches wide before you like an untouched canvas awaiting color. And God, the master painter, is already brushing the first stroke of dawn across your destiny. It is written in the book of Philippians, chapter 1, verse 6. He who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. Those words echo through eternity. They are the seal on your new beginning. What God starts, He finishes. There are no unfinished stories in His kingdom, no discarded drafts, no wasted ink. Every word written through your surrender will reach its divine conclusion. You are not halfway done, you are halfway home. The greatest chapter does not begin with noise or celebration, it begins with stillness. A quiet awareness that the hard season was not for nothing. You have learned to listen, to discern, to wait. You have come to understand that delays were not denials, they were designs. The author was not withholding the ending, he was perfecting the middle. Now, all the threads of your past pain and joy, loss and gain, confusion and revelation are weaving into harmony. The pattern you couldn't see while you were walking through it now begins to make sense. Every chapter, no matter how painful, was essential to this one. Without the breaking, there would be no beauty. Without the waiting, no wonder. This chapter is called Glory. It's not written in the ink of striving, but in the ink of surrender. You no longer chase what belongs to you. You attract it by alignment. The lessons learned in the wilderness have become the wisdom you now carry into promise. The words you speak from this point forward will hold weight, because they come from the depths of one who has seen both storm and sunrise. The greatest chapter is not about revenge or recognition, it's about revelation. It's about seeing yourself as heaven always did. You were never the abandoned one, never the forgotten one, never the failure. You were always the chosen, the refined, the destined. What you call survival, heaven calls preparation. What you call endurance, heaven calls excellence. Now, everything that resisted you begins to serve you. The winds that once pushed against you now fill your sails. The obstacles that once blocked you now elevate you. The very memories that once hurt now heal others. Nothing is wasted in the story written by grace. Even your scars shimmer under the light, reflecting the evidence that you lived, you learned, and you overcame. Chosen one, heaven is smiling upon you tonight. The angels who walked with you through the furnace now watch as the author hands you the finished page. This is your turning point, the moment the script changes tone. The rhythm of your days begins to sound like peace. Where anxiety once shouted, now stillness sings. Where grief once ruled, joy rebuilds its throne. You may not notice it immediately, but everything around you is responding to this divine shift. People will sense the calm on you before they understand it. Opportunities will flow toward you as naturally as rivers returning to the sea. Your spirit will no longer chase validation. It will radiate quiet authority. You will walk as one who knows that heaven has signed the final draft of your destiny. The greatest chapter begins not with a new identity, but with the revelation of the true one. You were always chosen. You just needed to remember. You were always beloved. You just needed to believe it. This chapter is about recognition, recognizing the divine fingerprint on your life. The constant hand that guided you, the voice that never stopped calling your name even when you were too weary to answer. There will still be pages of challenge ahead, but they will read differently now. You will face storms. Yes, but now you know how to sail. You will walk through darkness, but now you carry your own light. The trials will no longer define you. They will only display the power that lives within you. Heaven's script moves forward, line by line. The ink of promise dries upon the page, sealing your new beginning. You are stepping into chapters of abundance, peace, and fulfillment. The night of striving gives way to the dawn of grace. The sound of this moment is quiet, but it's wholly the hush of heaven when destiny clicks into place. Look at your hands. Chosen one, they are not empty. They hold the pen, the promise, the power. Look at your path, it is not ending. It is only unfolding. The greatest chapter begins not tomorrow, but now. Heaven has declared it. Earth will witness it. And as the page turns, the author smiles, for what he began in you will not merely continue, it will complete. Beloved chosen one, if these words have reached the deepest part of you, if somewhere between the lines you felt heaven breathe on your heart, then pause right here. This isn't just an ending, it's a moment of reflection, a sacred exhale after a long journey through light and revelation. You've walked through 17 divine chapters, and now you stand at the threshold of new beginnings. If this message has stirred something in you, let your heart respond. Like this message as a quiet act of agreement, a way of saying, I receive what heaven has spoken over me. Each like is more than a button pressed. It's a spark of faith, a flame that tells heaven, I'm still here, still believing, still. Then, take one small but powerful step further, share this message. Somewhere, there is a weary soul scrolling through silence, waiting for a word that reminds them they are not forgotten. You could be the bridge between their despair and their awakening. When you share, you plant seeds of hope in hearts you may never meet, yet heaven records everyone. In the comments below, let your voice join the chorus of the redeemed. Write what you felt, what you're leaving behind, or what you're stepping into. Your comment might be the confirmation someone else has been praying for. You don't need eloquence, just honesty. Speak from your heart, and heaven will echo it. And if this space has become a sanctuary for you where the presence of God meets you through every word, then subscribe. Stay close. Every message that flows here carries a purpose. A pulse of divine encouragement meant to meet you exactly where you are. You are part of something sacred now, a family of faith, light, and renewal. The story continues, and you, chosen one, are the living proof that heaven still writes through willing hearts.